Even though I know someday you'll shine on your own, I will be a protector. Wanna be a protector. Darling, you set me free. I can't.
Father, why you ain't just get this done and over with? You know, my mom was a dancer. She used to go to a couple concerts with our friends, and basically they went to an apartment building. You know, they relaxed and chilled, and had sex.
Has Jay-Z or any of his people tried to reach out to you to maybe like squash you from doing these?
I mean, I wouldn't say they trying to stop it, but they definitely don't want it out there. I would say that. It's crazy to me. You know, I'm not asking for no money or nothing. I'm not asking for no handouts or nothing like that. I work every day. I take care of my family. Only thing I'm asking for, if it's not the truth and there's nothing wrong with the Supreme Court, like, just get it over with. Let's get it over with.
Yeah, you just want the answer.
Persons from Mr. Carter's family who contacted us through Twitter about Ramir, asking for him to drop the case and to stop doing stuff with the case because Jay likes people disloyal. And for him to do this, it doesn't look good. And if he wants some resolution, he needs to stop, make this case go away. The Beyonce thing came when a friend of mine who knew her, somebody in her camp, and she said something, supposedly, this is all hearsay, about regarding saying Ramir needs to go away little boy, something to that effect. There was something out there with the song they made. And then next thing I know, somebody was at my property. Somebody came to my property in the evening time and had a conversation about trying to get in.
Crazy.
I mean, it could be a coincidence, may not be, who knows? But people were saying that she's a big part of the problems for him. And some of the things that she was doing, a woman would not, she would have some sort of role in what her husband does. And if she was secure with herself and with the situation, not saying you gotta like it, she would help her husband handle it. Because this is a Black community. This is a Black man. Ramir is Black. And then you have Black people, and I'm not trying to be funny, y'all. I love Black people out there doing stuff and get your own color in the civil rights department and in the legal system.
Beyonce just dropped a silent bomb that's shaking the internet to its core. Forget the polished image of the Carter family you thought you knew, because the whispers about Rumi's neurodivergence have turned into a storm, and an explosive DNA test is threatening to rip Jay-Z's carefully built empire apart. Fans are spiraling, wondering, is this Beyonce's way of reclaiming control after years of secrets, scandals, and unspoken truths? Or is this just the beginning of a much bigger reckoning that could tarnish the legacy they've spent decades protecting? Buckle up, because the facade of perfection might be cracking wide open, and what's leaking out is messier than anyone expected. Y'all, stop what you're doing, because Beyonce just sent the internet into cardiac arrest without saying a single word. One moment she's on stage, glowing and untouchable, and the next, boom, the whispers that have followed her family for years just exploded into front-page drama. For a long time, fans have speculated, side-eyed, and wondered about little Rumi, her energy, her expressions, the way she moves when she's excited. And now, without ever addressing it directly, Beyoncé may have just confirmed what the industry's been tiptoeing around for years, that her daughter is neurodivergent. No Instagram captions, no PR statements, just one powerful moment that said everything without her having to say anything at all. But hold on, because that's not even the part that has the Carter empire shaking. While all eyes were on Rumi's possible autism reveal, something even more explosive was quietly unfolding behind the scenes. A secret paternity test, yes, a real one, has finally cornered Jay-Z after more than a decade of legal dodging. The streets are talking, and the whispers are deafening. Did Beyoncé decide to go public with Rumi's diagnosis now to soften the blow of what's coming next? Is she trying to get ahead of the headlines before Jay-Z's alleged secret son is confirmed? Because if these rumors are true, we're not just looking at a crack in the Carter brand. We're looking at the potential unraveling of everything they've built. Was Beyoncé forced into this? Is this damage control, disguised as vulnerability? And what does this mean for the couple that spent decades selling us an image of power, perfection, and unity? One thing's for sure, the mask is slipping, and the truth is coming whether they're ready or not. It all started with one moment on the Cowboy Carter tour that should have been sweet and celebratory, but instead set the internet ablaze. When Beyoncé brought Rumi on stage, fans expected a picture-perfect family moment. What they got was something far more raw and, for many, deeply revealing. As the music played and the spotlight hit, viewers couldn't help but notice Rumi's body language. She wasn't waving at the crowd or mimicking her mom's poise. Instead, she was visibly overstimulated, flapping her hands, bouncing with nervous energy, and engaging in what many online immediately recognized as stimming behavior, something commonly associated with autism and other forms of neurodivergence. Within minutes, clips flooded TikTok, Reddit, and X, with fans and neurodivergent parents alike weighing in. That's not a tantrum, that's sensory overload. I've seen that exact movement in my daughter when she's overwhelmed. And for once, instead of shutting the conversation down, Beyoncé said nothing. No denials, no legal threats, no damage control from the PR machine. It was the silence that screamed the loudest. Because let's be honest, this isn't the first time fans have speculated about Rumi. Rumors about her being on the spectrum have circulated for years, mostly whispered in comment sections or hinted at in blind items. And up until now, Beyoncé and Jay-Z's response has always been swift and firm. Silence, redirection, or flat-out legal threats. The Carter camp has always been notoriously tight-lipped, especially when it comes to their children. So the fact that Beyoncé chose this moment, on this tour, to not only bring Rumi out, but allow her to exist publicly in a way that didn't fit the usual polished family aesthetic was no accident. It felt deliberate. It felt like soft confirmation without ever having to say the words. But now fans are asking, was this a genuine moment of maternal pride or a calculated move in a bigger media strategy? Because let's not forget, just weeks before this public display of neurodivergent inclusion, Jay-Z and Beyoncé were allegedly preparing to sue Kanye West for referencing the twins' rumored diagnosis. Kanye, in one of his chaotic online rants, went full scorched earth and dragged the Carter kids into his drama, prompting immediate threats of legal action. So how do you go from that to suddenly inviting the world in with open arms? To some, it looks like growth. To others, it reeks of strategic spin, especially when you realize this sudden openness comes right as a long-buried paternity scandal is threatening to erupt. And in the world of celebrity image control, nothing is ever accidental, not even love for your child. But to really understand why the timing of Beyoncé's sudden openness has so many eyebrows raised, we have to rewind just a few weeks, back to when Kanye West did what Kanye always does. Lit a match and tossed it directly into the Carter camp's most guarded secrets. In one of his now-deleted X rants, you didn't just shade Beyoncé and Jay-Z. He took it all the way there, dragging their youngest children into his unhinged tirade. Has anyone even seen Jay-Z and Beyoncé's younger kids? He wrote in all caps, like a man trying to detonate a landmine. This is why artificial insemination is a blessing. Having kids is a choice. It wasn't just a jab. It was a direct shot at the rumors surrounding the twins, their behavior, and Beyoncé's long-standing obsession with controlling the family image. The implication was clear. Something's being hidden, and you is daring them to deny it. The backlash was immediate. Beyoncé and Jay-Z's legal team allegedly went into overdrive, firing off cease and desist warnings, threatening lawsuits, and making it clear that any public speculation about their children would be met with swift consequences. And let's be honest, this wasn't out of character. The Carters have always protected their children with a level of secrecy bordering on paranoia. Photos are rare. Public appearances are filtered through layers of PR vetting. They don't just guard their kids' privacy. They treat it like national security. So when Kanye crossed that line, their legal response was almost automatic. Page 6 even reported that Jay-Z and Beyoncé were shocked and disgusted by the comments and were actively exploring their legal options to hold Ye accountable. Their outrage was public, pointed, and intense, which is exactly why fans are side-eyeing the sudden narrative shift that followed. Because after years of clamping down on any whisper about their kids' health, and mere weeks after threatening lawsuits over autism rumors, Beyoncé is now publicly leaning into the very story they try to suppress. What changed? What suddenly made it okay for Rumi to be seen, as she is, without the polished Carter filter? Some fans are saying it's growth, that Beyoncé is stepping into a more vulnerable, authentic era. But others aren't buying it. To them, this isn't motherhood, it's media strategy. And the timing is almost too perfect. Just as the paternity case against Jay-Z heats up and the courts reportedly close in, the Carter camp conveniently pivots to an emotionally resonant story that pulls heartstrings and earns sympathy. It's not just about embracing the truth. It's about controlling the story before someone else does. And if Kanye's outburst forced their hand, then maybe, just maybe, it wasn't Beyoncé's choice at all. It was survival. While the world was busy analyzing Rumi's body language and applauding Beyoncé's alleged step into vulnerability, the real storm was quietly closing in on Jay-Z. Because after more than a decade of dodging, delaying, and outright denying, the paternity scandal that's haunted him since the early 2010s is back, with a vengeance. Rammer Satterthwaite, a man who spent most of his adult life claiming Jay-Z is his biological father, is no longer just speaking out. He's taking it all the way to court, again. And this time, it looks like the system might actually force Jay-Z to do what he's refused to for years: submit a DNA test. For Rammer, this isn't about fame or money. It's about identity. And for Jay-Z, well, the fact that he spent so long avoiding a simple paternity test has fans asking one crucial question. If he had nothing to hide, why not just prove it and walk away clean? Because here's the thing, Rammer's story hasn't changed. He's been saying the same thing since he was a teenager, that his mother, Wanda, had a brief but real relationship with Jay-Z before his fame exploded, and that she always believed Jay-Z was the father. But when Wanda passed away, Rammer inherited more than just unanswered questions. He inherited a legal fight that's been smothered in red tape ever since. Jay-Z, for his part, hasn't just denied the claim. He's allegedly done everything possible to bury it. Court documents have mysteriously disappeared. Motions have been blocked on technicalities. Judges have been pressured. Files have been sealed. Every time Rammer got close, another legal obstacle popped up. The Carters had the money, the lawyers, the influence, and Rammer was just a kid trying to get someone to listen. And yet, here we are, in 2025, with the court reportedly demanding that Jay-Z finally cough up that DNA sample. According to legal insiders, the latest filing pushed by Rammer's team forced the court to re-evaluate the case and take it seriously. Years of dodging no longer hold water. The court allegedly wants answers, and they're no longer accepting silence as a response. And that's where the tension explodes. Because the longer Jay-Z waits to comply, the more people are wondering, what's really at stake here? This isn't just a rich man avoiding child support. This is a billionaire mogul, a global icon, a father of three, who's gone to extraordinary lengths just to avoid spitting into a vial. If the story isn't true, if this is just some clout-chasing fantasy like his team claims, why not end it? Why not submit the sample, prove the kid wrong, and close the door forever? Instead, Jay-Z's silence has only fueled the fire. And now, that fire is threatening to torch the very foundation he built with Beyoncé. Because the court's patience is running out, and so is the public's. And let's be honest, if this test comes back positive, the entire narrative surrounding the Carters implodes. Not just because Jay-Z fathered a child outside his marriage, but because of the calculated effort it allegedly took to erase that child from existence. We're talking about a decade of evasion, cover-ups, and what some fans are now calling legal gaslighting. Every sealed file, every dismissed case, every year this dragged on only strengthens Rammer's story. And suddenly, this stops looking like a bitter custody fight and starts looking like a full-blown cover-up. Just when you thought the Jay-Z paternity drama couldn't get any more tangled, a chilling blind item began making the rounds. And it's one that, if true, could shift this entire narrative from messy to criminal. According to a series of cryptic posts from a well-known Hollywood gossip insider, someone with a track record for exposing major scandals before they break, Jay-Z isn't just afraid of a DNA test because of Ramir. The Blind alleges that the real reason Jay-Z has spent years fighting tooth and nail to avoid submitting genetic material is because of what that DNA could potentially unlock in federal databases. That's right. The implication is that Jay-Z's DNA might not just confirm paternity. It might match evidence linked to unsolved crimes. Now, let's be clear. No official charges have ever been filed. There's no concrete proof yet, but the whispers are growing louder. The Blind item claimed that a billionaire rapper-turned-mogul with government ties has long been protected from public scrutiny, and that his DNA has never been voluntarily submitted to CODIS, the combined DNA index system used by law enforcement, for a reason. It also alleges that sealed documents in a civil case were nearly subpoenaed by a separate criminal task force investigating an old case tied to the early 90s New York drug trade. And here's where the puzzle pieces start to line up in a terrifying way. Jay-Z has always been upfront about his past. He's talked about selling crack as a teen, about surviving the Marcy projects, about making it out of a system designed to keep him caged. But what if the full truth about that past is darker than lyrics suggest? What if there are lingering ghosts from that era that haven't been buried, just ignored? And what if the only thing protecting Jay-Z all these years has been his ability to stay off the grid, biologically speaking? If the courts force a DNA test to settle the paternity case with Ramir, that same DNA, once entered in a public or legal record, could theoretically be cross-referenced, accidentally or intentionally. And that's the nightmare scenario the Blind claims has the Carter camp spiraling behind closed doors. Because if this isn't just about avoiding a child support claim, if this is about keeping other secrets locked away, then Ramir's quiet, persistent plea for identity could unravel everything. Suddenly, Jay-Z's aggressive legal defense, his obsession with sealed files, and even Beyoncé's careful pivot toward public sympathy for Rumi, all of it takes on a different tone. Less like a family protecting their peace, and more like a well-oiled machine fighting for survival. It's no longer just a paternity scandal. It's the possible trigger for a federal investigation. And if that DNA gets processed, the iceberg everyone's been sailing around might finally come into view. And the scariest part? If these allegations are even halfway true, Jay-Z wouldn't be the only one implicated. There are rumors, yes, just rumors for now, that others in his inner circle could be exposed in the fallout. Business partners, political allies, even people in law enforcement who've helped bury stories in the past. Which begs the question, how far will a billionaire go to make sure the world never sees the real results of that DNA test? For Beyoncé, everything has always been about control. Every camera angle, every hair strand, every whisper of scandal. Nothing makes it to the public without first being processed through the Beyoncé machine. This is a woman who rehearses her tour transitions down to the millisecond, who's built an empire on flawlessness, silence, and spectacle. She doesn't do messy. She doesn't do reactive. And she certainly doesn't do vulnerable. At least not without a multi-million-dollar production budget and full creative control. So when cracks start to show, when private truths slip into public view, it doesn't just threaten her image. It threatens her legacy. Let's be real. Beyoncé has spent over 2 decades crafting the myth of perfection. The untouchable queen. The hardest working woman in music. The devoted wife who forgave her husband's betrayal and flipped it into lemonade. The fierce mother of 3, balancing motherhood and megastardom with supernatural ease. But the rumors swirling now about a secret child, about Rumi's possible autism, about Jay-Z's alleged criminal past, they cut deeper than gossip. They hit at the heart of the brand Beyoncé has built, one of control, purity, and power. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If Jay-Z is forced to acknowledge Ramir as his biological son, that doesn't just disrupt his image. It disrupts hers. Suddenly, the narrative of the perfect family, the power couple, the Carter dynasty, they all collapse under the weight of something Beyoncé, didn't plan for. Imagine the backlash. The questions about why she helped bury a child's existence for over a decade. The commentary from Black mothers, from autism advocates, from fans who worshipped her as a symbol of maternal grace. She goes from icon to accomplice in the blink of an eye. From a woman who overcame betrayal to a woman who enabled a cover-up. And the autism narrative? While many fans praised her for letting Rumi shine during Cowboy Carter, others saw it as a calculated move to redirect public focus. A soft rebrand. A pivot toward vulnerability right as legal threats closed in on the family. But Beyoncé's never been an open book, so why now? Is it genuine growth? Or is it damage control? Because let's not forget, this is the same woman who hid an entire pregnancy, who scrubbed the internet clean of unflattering photos after a single Super Bowl performance, who went years without speaking in interviews so her mystique could remain intact. Transparency was never the brand. Perfection was. And now, that perfection is unraveling. The whispers are turning into questions. The questions into doubts. And as the spotlight turns harsher, Beyoncé is no longer just battling public perception. She's fighting to protect the brand that built her billion-dollar empire. One scandal is survivable, but a secret child? A medical diagnosis buried for years? A husband possibly linked to criminal investigations? That's not just personal, it's existential. For Beyoncé, this isn't about headlines anymore. This is about legacy. And whether the woman who once ruled the world can survive when the truth starts writing her story for her. So what happens if the DNA results go public? What happens if, after all these years, Rammer's truth is validated? Not just in court, but in the court of public opinion. It wouldn't just confirm that Jay-Z is the father. It would confirm that the Carters, a couple synonymous with power, prestige, and Black excellence, have spent over a decade hiding a child. Not a scandal they survived, like Lemonade. Not a PR hiccup like Elevator Gate, but a full-blown erasure of a human life. A young Black man who's been dismissed, gaslit, and legally stonewalled while the man he believes is his father rapped about generational wealth and Black legacy on million-dollar stages. And the fallout wouldn't stop at Jay-Z, because every decision he made, every delay, every sealed document, every denial was made within a partnership, a marriage, a brand. Beyoncé didn't just stand by his side during Lemonade, she doubled down. She turned forgiveness into a weapon, motherhood into art, and silence into mystique. But now that silence feels heavier. Now it feels like complicity. And as the public begins to re-examine Rumi's onstage moments through the lens of possible neurodivergence, the stakes get even higher. Was Beyoncé trying to protect her daughter, or soften the blow of the storm she knew was coming? Fans are torn. Some see a mother finally breaking down her own walls. Others see a calculated prelude to a media pivot, a soft distraction before the DNA test drops. And that's the danger. Because once your brand depends on total control, even authenticity starts to look like strategy. And the questions won't stop there. What if Rammer chooses to speak out again? This time with legal support, media backing, and undeniable evidence. What if the DNA test not only confirms paternity, but opens the door to further investigation into Jay-Z's past, into sealed court filings, into whispers that trace back to the early days of Rockefeller? What if the legal battle escalates into a broader reckoning, one that drags the Carter name through the very public, very messy scrutiny they've spent their entire careers avoiding? The empire they built wasn't just made of music. It was made of myth, of silence, of powerful omissions. And now, the silence is cracking. The questions are multiplying, and the myth is bleeding. So as the world waits for a DNA result, for a comment, for a slip-up, the real question isn't about paternity or even public opinion. The real question is this. Can Beyoncé and Jay-Z survive the perfect storm of paternity, neurodivergence, and buried secrets? Or is the empire finally beginning to fall?